Hello, everyone. We're here today with a friend and an individual who's been doing a lot of research. She comes from a sort of a research background, and she is someone who I feel confident has uncovered a great deal of information that I know will be helpful and useful to all of you. I have with me today Michelle Engarto, who is an individual that I came in contact with during an event that STN put on, and Michelle was a dynamite individual helping us get that event up and running with many of her friends and colleagues who are now engaged in the work that she is doing in our county here in Pennsylvania. That's specifically Montgomery County. And Michelle comes from a background, a strong background in the corporate world. She was a executive with Corning and has a lot of information that she's going to share with us today. But Michelle, I'm going to ask you if you could just give us a little more detailed background into yourself and help the listeners understand a little bit where you come from.
Sure. Good morning, Doug. As Doug said, my name is Michelle Engarto. I've lived in Montgomery County for 3 years. My husband and I, when we were about to retire, decided we really wanted to make PA our home. We're from the Northeast and always loved the state of Pennsylvania. I earned an engineering degree from UMass Amherst a long time ago, I won't say how long, and an MBA from Wake Forest University. And I spent 30 years of my life at Corning Incorporated, just a great company, and learned so much there. I held many leadership roles during that time, including plant management, global manufacturing leadership, innovation, and new business development. And I led businesses with 9-figure budgets, so they were pretty large businesses. My role was to grow those businesses profitably and to develop new profitable businesses born of novel technologies. So Corning's known for innovation. So that brought some interesting challenges as well. And as I mentioned, I retired in 2024. So I've always had an interest in politics and kind of was following on the sidelines, but I've never participated in politics at all due to my heavy work schedule and travels. So that's changed. And I've met a lot of wonderful people in Montgomery County, and I've been able to feed my interest. And I started doing some heavy data analysis on both elections and the budget and studying anomalies and potential problems that need to be resolved. And I've also provided input to the commissioners at commissioners meetings and to taxpayers, really to help taxpayer understanding and to identify areas that need attention. So what I found was a lot of the data is available, but when you start digging in and asking questions, the data necessary to answer those questions is not available. So you really have to dig a little bit, and I'm hoping I can make the assessment simple for people to understand and do the work myself so that they don't have to do digging while they're attending to other things like family and jobs. I would also like to credit my colleague David Reich for his contribution to this analysis. We work together closely. He's a resident of Montco since 2005, and he also earned an MBA. He got his MBA from Northwestern University, and he spent his whole career working in finance in large corporations. He retired from Merck in 2021, and he's held a variety of controller and finance director capacities. So together we have a wealth of experience, probably about 100 years by now. Almost of experience, it feels like. And I want to mention that neither of us are paid to do this work. We just do so out of love of our country and our state and for the benefit of our fellow citizens.
That's beautiful, Michelle. And David was to be with us today, but due to other issues, he couldn't join us. But I will have Dave on in a separate interview as well. Michelle mentioned also that she's done a lot of digging into the election integrity issues, and we're going to have Michelle back to speak on that as well. But today I'd like to focus more so on what Michelle and Dave, but Michelle is with us today to describe some of the information that she's uncovered relative to the budget here in Montgomery County and what they've kind of learned, uncovered, and been able to discern through the research that they've done. And this is very difficult to do because the information and the data is not really open in many instances. You have to dig quite a bit. So I have a pile here of information that Michelle has sent to me, and Dave has sent some of this as well. I did an interview with Dave just to get the data down, and it's voluminous. I mean, the information that you guys have here is just amazing. I have to confess, I haven't read through every detail that you forwarded to me, but I know you're going to be able to capsulize that today for us, Michelle. So maybe you kind of touched on this, but you have really developed, and Dave as well, and others that are working with you, really developed a passion for uncovering this information and revealing it. And I think it's really important, not only for our listeners, but for every individual who lives in this county and for others to learn what you've done so they can do it in their own counties. So perhaps you can give me a little more detail about, how you kind of developed this interest and the passion that you have and others to reveal what's going on, the truth about what's going on.
Yeah, sure. So I started getting involved in elections and local campaigns. I started to become more politically active. And one of the things that came out loud and clear was the multiple years of increased taxes. And people were talking a lot about that, particularly property taxes and millage rates. And also the commissioners began to announce hiring plans for expanding our local government. And there were also at the same time, so in addition to really, really big increases in spending, which I'll get to the details of that later, we also had significant projects like the massive Justice Center project, which is a $415 million project, just huge. I've managed large capital projects. I've built large manufacturing facilities with a lot of technology in other countries for much less money than that, and even in the U.S. So I was pretty shocked when I heard the number. And I was just curious to better understand the budget and how we were spending money and what the objectives of the Montgomery County commissioners was, et cetera. So I started digging in and I started attending commissioner meetings and I started talking to fellow citizens. And there was very little understanding, in plain English as to, what really is the county trying to do and how are they spending our money and is it wisely spent and can we do better? So that's just my nature, is to ask questions and to get the answers. And I really had to dig into the data myself, because what you have on the public websites is fairly surface level and really summarized to a degree that you don't really understand what it means. So you've got line items, right, for budgets, but you don't really know what is really in there. What is the money being spent on? What is the mission of these departments? What is the job description for all the positions that we're hiring for? It's not available publicly. So that bothered me. And I wasn't getting answers at the commissioners' meetings. It's not really to address every question citizens have, of course. So I thought, well, I'm just going to dig into the data myself. And I would like to be able to separate fact from fiction and know what we're doing well and what we're not doing well, and maybe help get citizens together to improve on the things that need improving. So as I've done this research, I do get passionate because sometimes people in power don't understand, and they don't want to admit they don't understand. And that's a problem, right? Obviously, if they're managing the funds, they don't really understand how the money's being spent. That's a problem. But sometimes they do understand, and they don't really want to disclose what they're trying to do. So I'm sort of like a detective, a data detective, and I ask questions in my head about, well, why is this and why is that? And I look at actions to discern what the objectives really are, because sometimes people aren't totally forthcoming. Mm-hmm. So that's what I hope to enlighten folks here today about is what I have found. And I really try to stick to the facts, factual analysis. I'm not interested in opinions. I don't pull anything in terms of opinion off the internet. I actually dig into the data and I let the data show the audience, what is going on, and they can make their own conclusions as to why it's going on. But the facts are the facts. And I'm here to share some of the facts today.
Just the facts, ma'am. I like that. So, one of the things that you mentioned was that you attend county commissioners meetings. When are those held?
They're almost on a biweekly basis, so they're fairly frequently. And the current schedule is always posted on the Montgomery County website. So if you go in there and you link to the commissioners, they will let you know when it is, where it is. You can attend by Zoom, which is awesome because a lot of people can't travel. Unfortunately, the meetings are usually during the day. So if people can't attend by Zoom or in person, you also can get all the videos on YouTube. So subscribe to the YouTube channel and you'll be able to watch them all, after the fact, which is great. And the public commentary is always at the end.
So the challenging part is they set the date, time for these meetings. And I believe the meetings are typically during the day in the morning when most people are working. So you get
Yes.
retired folks typically and/or folks who are not employed. So that makes it a little challenging for you that want to attend. I don't know how it is in other states and counties, but it's something that I think everyone should check into because it is critical, and we'll talk about this later as well, that you become engaged. That's one of the things we always want to see with any podcast we do with STN is that we give you points of engagement, ways that you can get involved and engaged in making a change. Digging into the details, though, must be an extremely challenging thing for you because they're somewhat hidden, I would think, and you really have to dig and know where to dig to get the truth. And again, that's one of the things that we're always looking for. You just mentioned that. So talk a little bit about, how you've done the research and really what your research has revealed to you. I know there are a number of revelations that people are totally unaware of as to where the money's being spent, what it's being spent on. I mean, and I don't believe you get an annual goals list or anything that the county puts out as to what their intentions are for the coming year. So, you get this budget with all these increases, and you have to kind of figure out where that money is going. And that's what you guys have done a great job in doing. So I'm going to let you give a little more detail about those two subjects, the research itself and how you were able to dig through some of this, and secondarily, the money and where it's going.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sure. And as far as the money and where it's going, I'm going to pick a few key highlights because we have a limited amount of time.
Certainly.
Believe me, I could go on for an entire day. So how people ask me this, usually the first question they ask me when I come up with some of the data or summarize it is, where'd you get this information?
Right.
And
Right.
I'm not pulling it off news sites. I'm not using other people's PowerPoint presentations. I'm doing my own analysis with Dave. He's done a tremendous amount as well. We confirm each other's findings. So the data actually comes from public sources like the U.S. government. So I use census data from census.gov, which is there's a wealth of information there, which is kind of the Bible for data on population, some election statistics and those sorts of things. So I use census.gov, which everyone has access to. It's free. And I also use, on the election integrity stuff, I use voter services data, and the State Department, the PA State Department has a great amount of data and statistics available for us about our county, about our townships, and about our state. So I use that data as well. There's public information on the Montgomery County website, but it is not nearly enough information. So we also are doing right to know and FOIA requests to get data behind the scenes. So for instance, there's no org chart published from Montgomery County, and I have a real strong desire to understand how our government operates, what all these departments are and what they do and how they tree up to leaders. And that's not available publicly. So you have to request it through a Freedom of Information Act request or right to know request. And you can get that information. They will provide it. It takes a little bit of time, but that's what we're doing. You can get line item budget details, from your schools, from our county by requesting it, but you have to formally request it in the right way. And then they will provide you, you have to be smart about how you request it because they'll only provide you what you ask for. So you have to be smart about what data do you really need, how are you going to ask the question, and then you get the data. So we have a number of files on detailed budget line items, salaries, reporting structure, and those sorts of things that helps us really analyze data that is helpful to understanding what's going on versus just a PowerPoint presentation of the budget, which really doesn't tell us nearly enough. So we continue. I have an outstanding list of about 14 Freedom of Information Act requests that I'm putting together because there's so much data that's not available publicly. So we're going to continue to dig and continue to look at the data just to find facts. And I'm interested in finding what we're doing well as much as what we're not doing well. So it's not any kind of a witch hunt. It's just I want people to understand the truth. Here's what we are doing that's great. We got to keep doing it. And here's where we're not doing so great. We probably could move the funding over to the great stuff and make it even better. So That's really what I'm after is maximizing utility for the taxpayers. So let me, you can stop me at any time. I have
I just wanted to interject one thing.
Sure.
That just bubbles right up and infuriates me. These are our tax dollars that are being spent. This is money out of your pocket that's going into all of this. Yet, you have no idea where it's going. You have no idea what the details are that Michelle's discussing here and why we have some of these departments. I know that from my conversations with Dave, I mean, we have new departments that are being, put into place, and we have no idea that, number one, that it's being done, number two, why, number three, what it's for and who's going to be, in that department, who you're hiring, how many hires there are. I mean, these are the things that, we should all be having input on, at least, in some way, because it's our money. And that's what really ticks me off. I mean, I'm all for government doing certain things, but a limitation in what those things are is extremely important, in my opinion. There are certain things that the government's responsible for. There are certain things that we're responsible for that the government doesn't have to do. So I'm sorry to interrupt you there. You were on a good roll, but I just, as you were speaking, I felt this welling up inside of me that, why is it that we're paying for all this, yet we have no idea what we're paying for? That's the thing that you guys are doing an extremely valuable task here in exposing for us. And I credit you guys a great deal with everything you're doing. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. You've got a lot more to say, Michelle, and I want to focus on this budget information as much as you can.
Yeah, no. Thank you for that, and thanks for the support. I do want to add that it should not feel adversarial to ask questions about how our tax money is being spent. People are paying a lot of taxes. They're struggling. Prices have gone up over the last 5 years. They're coming down now, but still, life is very expensive for people. And to feel intimidated to ask questions, which I can tell you, even in the commissioner meeting, sometimes it feels intimidating or that you're going to be judged just for asking questions. It shouldn't feel that way. We should all be on the same team. We all live in the county. We all love our state. We all want to take care of people who need help, for sure. But it should not be controversial to ask questions and to work together, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. It shouldn't be a problem to work together and say, you know what, this just isn't right. We're not getting our money's worth over here. It was a good try, but let's shift the money over there. Let's stop this. Let's start that. But it does feel to me that taxpayer input is not valued. It's not valued, and it's almost resented. I will just tell you that.
No, and that's a sad thing, to have fear, which is what you've really described at a commissioner's meeting, to stand up and say what you think or what you believe or ask a question of someone. That's just not the way it's supposed to be. These people were put in place to represent us. And if we have a question or a comment or a thought, I've always met with our state elected officials, whether it be on the county level, on a state level, if there were issues. And I've always found that if you're cordial, you're respectful, and they are as well, you can get things done. And that's exactly what you're talking about here, Michelle, is, we're not here to chastise anyone or to pick on someone specifically or personally. We're here to expose the truth and to get answers. And, if you can't give the answers, it's your job to find the answers, because we're your constituents. We're the ones who put you there. And, you have to be respectful of us as well.
Right. I would love to see a podcast with our three commissioners and have them answer the same questions and answer some of the whys without us having to dig so hard. And I know that Commissioner DeBello has been very open and forthcoming and supportive. But I will say that the two Democrat commissioners have not been as much. I mean, I would love to attend some town halls with the Democrat commissioners and find out what's really behind, some of the spending without having to dig so hard and to guess.
And the challenge with something like that, Michelle, is you will be chastised perhaps, or at least categorized as adversarial just for asking the questions oftentimes. You're right, and I think that's an important point that you just made. We have 3 county commissioners, one of whom is, in my opinion, conservative, and 2 of whom are not quite as conservative. That's being very polite. So we're kind of hamstrung relative to certain things. And, you have 2 individuals that may vote in lockstep and one who may not, but you're still going to get what they want. And that's our challenge right now. And this is why, again, getting back to Michelle's initial comment as to why she is so passionate, one of those is because she got involved or interested, or really was her whole life, in politics, but now she's become more engaged in that world. And, you know, that's important for every one of you out there. We've got an upcoming interim election. You have got to get out there. You have got to support those individuals that you feel strongly about, and you have got to become engaged. If you do not, things are going to turn in a bad way very rapidly. And I can't overemphasize that to you. You must become passionate, as Michelle is, about the issues. And, you know, I really feel that if you who are watching us and who are listening to what Michelle has to say today do not become engaged, then you are not going to make a change. And that's what we're here for. So again, I interject a little passion there. I'm sorry, Michelle, but
it's okay.
you know, it's so frustrating sometimes to hear the things that you're going to tell us about. And I know you're going to go into a little bit more detail here about some issues, and you know, just see people sitting on the sidelines and saying there's nothing I can do, wringing their hands. There's plenty you can do. You just have to get involved. So, Michelle, if you could go into a little more detail as to some of your findings and Dave's findings, because I know you guys work together on this, and enlighten us a little bit more about some of the things you've uncovered.
Yeah. So, all right, I will start just at a high level and talk about total spending. And since 2019, our commissioners have increased annual spending, $215 million. That's an average of $28 million every year. And in the last 5 years alone, our taxes have gone up a cumulative 43%. So that's a massive increase. So the question is why? What are we spending the money on? Why are we spending it? In 2026, our budget is just shy of $633 million. So it's a large budget for sure. And the county budget from 19 to 25 has increased over 50%. So from $420 million in 2019 to $633 million. Now we understand there's been inflation, right? That's legitimate. If you think that all of our spending is perfectly being applied, right, then you can take out inflation, which I have a problem with that because I don't think it's being perfectly applied. And I think some departments should go down to zero, not be getting inflation increases. But let's put that aside and say, if our government was perfect, let's take out inflation and let's take out population increases and say, if we want to provide the services we were providing in 2019, as well as we were based on that level of spending, the budget is still up 13%. So even if you take out all that other stuff, which is sort of explainable, but to me not, so we should be challenging that, you know, the budget's still up 13%, which means we're expanding the role of government. And to fund this, our real estate taxes had to go up 59%. So first of all, what were we spending the money on before the increase? But then we decided to increase it by 13%, which is a burden on the taxpayers because real estate has to pay for that. And we had to increase taxes 59%. So the question is, in my mind, is it worth it? Like, are we getting great services? Are we getting okay services? And am I receiving 59% more benefits and satisfaction from the county within the last 5 years? And I would have to say no, or I don't see it. Like someone needs to point it out to me because I don't see any difference, right? So the question for the listeners is, are you receiving 59% more from the county for your tax dollars? And I think the answer for most taxpayers is no. So let me tell you where some of the money is going to help you understand. One of the shocking things I found out is that we are the fifth largest employer in the county. Montgomery County government is the fifth largest employer. And large pharmaceuticals like Merck are in the top four. You know,
Sure.
So these large profitable businesses that are global are quite large. But Montco is number 5 in the county. That's a big business. And spending on wages and benefits for the Montco employees accounts for 49% of the total budget. So your tax money, half of it is going to paying salaries for government employees and benefits and pensions and all that kind of good stuff. So you would think that, you know, when you do the 80-20, I don't even need to do an 80-20, right? 50% of it just about is going towards wages and salaries. And we continue to add headcount like crazy to a very large government already. I would think headcount would be a major priority. So how can we have better productivity? What are all these people doing? What are their job descriptions? What are their objectives? And are they meeting the objectives? And what real value are they bringing to the people that live in the county? None of that information is readily available. So we get half the budget being spent. We don't really know what these people are doing. We don't know what the value is for the money being spent. So what's our rate of return on the investment in those people? It's just not clear. And as you mentioned before, we continue to add a bunch of departments to do even more. We're expanding government. We don't even know what the current government is doing. So one more thing on the wages and benefits. So when you increase the number of people in the government, first of all, you carry those wages and benefits into the future, and you've got pensions and benefits accruing, right? It's very difficult to reduce headcount for whatever reason. It's not in corporate America, but with the government, it's extremely difficult. And not only have they added departments and big wages and salaries, but and we're carrying those liabilities forward, but they also increased the minimum wage last year for hourly employees 28.3% in 1 year. So they raised the minimum wage for everybody, $16 an hour to $20.52 an hour in one fell swoop. And I would ask anyone who works in the private sector, when is the last time you got a 28.3% raise that was not tied to performance that you didn't ask for? It just doesn't happen. It's crazy. It's outrageous when we live and work in a free market and people are free to go get a job elsewhere. They feel that they're adding more value than they're getting paid for and they can't negotiate better. But for our government just to say, with a magic wand, here we go. We think $20.52 an hour is much more fair. So here you go. Where's the justification? Who came up with the 2052?
Exactly.
It makes no sense. So that's to me is just acting with total disregard for the taxpayer and disrespecting our hard work to be able to provide the money to do that. The county budget is divided actually into 7 major departments. So again, in those departments are people, right? So half the money in the departments is spent to pay the people who are working in the departments. Just remember that. So anything else I talk about is the other half of the budget. There are 7 major departments. There's Health and Human Services, Judicial, Corrections, Public Safety, Interest on the debt, and then other and administration. And we focus a lot on administration because it's one area that it doesn't generally impact the public directly, right? It's administration. It's taking care of what I call housekeeping items. And it's up 102% since 2019. So what on earth are all these admin people doing and what's in there? It's a total 17% of the budget is administration versus 12.7% in 2019. So the administration budget this year is $107.5 million, which is nearly double what it was 5 years ago. And even adjusted for inflation and population growth, the increase is $33 million. So why are we growing above inflation and population growth to such a degree? The answer is we're expanding existing activities, or we're taking on new activities, or we become much less productive. Those are the 3 choices. So the admin budget in 2019, if you look into what's in the admin area, there were 16 separate departments for administration in 2019. And in 2025, in 2026, it has 20. So we had 19 last year. We went from 16 in 2019 to 19 in 2025. And then this year, we're adding another one, external affairs. So a new department to do more new stuff. And the 4 newer departments, the 4 newest departments are going to cost us $5 million this year alone. And we didn't even have those departments a few years ago. So what are they doing? What's the justification? How are we going to measure the return on the investment?
Right.
None of this information is available.
Well, and so much to unpack here. You stated the county is the 5th largest employer, yet the businesses that you mentioned produce something. The county and government in general produces absolutely nothing.
Services,
okay?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, services. But there's no production of anything. There's no actual produced value beyond services. So that's an important point. And another concept, and what I value so much in what you're doing in your background, and Dave as well, is you come from business. I had an argument years ago with someone, and I said, the government really needs to be run like a business. And they argued with me. And I said, you've got expenses and you've got revenues. And when expenses significantly exceed revenues, you're in trouble just like any business. And their comment to me was, well, not really. And I said, well, why is that? And they said, well, because you can just raise taxes. I mean, this is the mentality you're talking about here. Yep. So, it's really frustrating to see that you have such growth in the administrative aspect of the county government, and yet what value are we receiving for that? As you said, there's little to no value that I see personally beyond what we had in 2019 when we were spending far less and had far fewer administrative positions and departments. Yeah. So, where's the value, and how do you get answers for that value? I don't believe that they can answer it as county commissioners. So we have to distinguish or determine what that value may be ourselves. And if there's little to no value, what do we do to eliminate or decrease the administrative costs? And as you said, in government, it's very difficult to do that. In any business, I don't know of any business necessarily where you have a 50% cost for your employees. If you do that, you're going to go out of business because you have many other expenses beyond that. So, doing that in a business model is insanity. You're going to go out of business. So, the whole concept of what you're describing just doesn't make any sense relative to longevity and being able to sustain without, as you've noted, significant tax increases.
I think if you're looking to please some other constituent who's not the taxpayer, it could make perfect sense. So if you're getting paid by the taxpayer to provide the services and the taxpayers are not happy, then who is it you're trying to please, is my question. So we need taxpayers to say whether they're happy or not, and that's part of the problem. We're not vocal enough. And elections, I hate to say the cliche, elections have consequences, but they do. If you look at the history of the Montgomery County Commissioners, Republicans, when they were in the majority, were actually reducing the tax rates over a 10-year period. And I have data on that as well. I didn't bring it today. But as soon as the Democrats got in the majority, they started increasing our tax rates by double digits and spending like crazy. So I don't think the taxpayers were requesting that. So we just have to really look at this with critical thinking and understand who really are the true customers of the commissioners when they're not listening to taxpayer concerns and they're not changing their approach to providing services in the county. I've got my own ideas, but those would get into my opinions. So I'll give you a couple more facts here. There were of the 16 departments in administration that existed in 2019, 5 of those departments are increasing their spending between 60 and 100%. 4 others are up between 100 and 135%, so more than doubling their spending. And human resources is up 177%, and voter services is up 198%.
Now, are those expenses for employees that they've hired? What are those expenses for?
Half of the expenses are for wages and benefits. So they're hiring people like crazy. Why we need so much more spending in voter services is a question. Again, we need budget line item details to understand what the money is being spent on. Right. We know that some of it is equipment. We know that we've added, we have well over a dozen Dropbox locations now in the county, so they have to be attended to. We also have a number of satellite voter services locations that need to be staffed. And we now have a voter services van that drives around. Unsure why that is necessary. I know what the county commissioners would say, but we are complexifying. This can be in the other podcast about election integrity, but we're really making a complex process, and complexity breeds expenses. The more complex the process is, the more expensive it is to operate. That's a fact. And then when you also operate inefficiently and have no regard for how you're going to pay for things because you're just raising taxes, you can kind of do whatever you want. Whether the actions add value or not is not your concern because we'll just raise taxes. And that's what they're doing. So there's massive increases in administration areas. And even the commissioner's budget is more than tripling since 2019. And last year was $8 million roughly. And this year it's almost $11 million. Why are the commissioners increasing their own spending by such a massive amount? In 2026, by the way, if the wages and benefits facts aren't annoying enough, in this year, the increase in wages and benefits for staff is increasing 34%. Okay? So this is ridiculous.
I'm sorry to laugh. This is just
ridiculous.
insane.
It's absurd, and it's irresponsible. And anyone says who we're managing in a fiscal responsible way, I'd like to know who's making that determination because they clearly have never operated in business.
Absolutely.
In a competitive environment.
Right.
So I want to give you a couple of examples of the salaries that we're paying. In 2025, I don't know if everyone's aware, but the commissioners approved the continued salary of a DEI director at over $151,000 a year, salary plus benefits, and approved 4 new DEI employees. They stated DEI employees at a cost of over $500,000 a year. What exactly are these 5 positions for, and what impact are they having for taxpayers?
What benefit is there to us, again?
Exactly. At the same time, the Trump administration eliminated all DEI positions and issued an order on January 21st of last year to encourage the private sector to end illegal DEI discrimination and preferences, yet our county is going full steam ahead and expanding in the area of DEI. Why? Also, in September of last year, Montgomery County decided to create a Human Relations Commission to address, I'm quoting from the site, address discrimination in housing, employment, and public accommodations to go beyond compliance. Whatever that means, go beyond compliance. Why do we need to go beyond compliance? They're adding 5 to 7 HRC commissioners to support this. And it's unclear what problems they're trying to solve because they're only loosely stated, right? By the way, Pennsylvania has a Human Relations Commission that looks exactly the same. So we took this idea and applied it to Montgomery County. But the PA HRC is available to all PA residents.
So they could use
Why do we need a redundant commission to do exactly the same thing, right? The commissioner's primary role is to resolve cases where violations of law have been found if they are not settled voluntarily. And these services will be offered for free. The focus will be on hate crimes, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-Black racism, Asian American Pacific Islander hate, and LGBTQ hate. And statewide, by the way, in the Human Resource Commission, they're not doing a great job and they're not having any impact, but they're spending a lot of money. Statewide probable cause was found in only 2% of all the cases in 2024. So for all that energy and all that spending and all the fancy flyer, they have an annual report that's really fabulous. It looks like Time Magazine. They only found probable cause in 2% of all the cases they worked on. And it took over 500 days to resolve the cases on average. So all of that for basically nothing. Yeah. And the Pennsylvania HRC is also being sued, by the way, by school districts for redefining sex and making it discriminatory in schools to enforce sports and restroom access by biological sex. The HRC is clearly redundant. It poses a threat, I think, of frivolous fines and subjective decisions by a commissioner board, and will continue to raise legal costs for taxpayers. We have a lot of lawyers that work in Montgomery County, let me tell you. We're paying a lot of lawyers already. We keep adding them. We keep adding public defenders. And now we have this. Completely redundant commission that seems unnecessary, that's been tried at the state level, that's been ineffective. And we're basically setting ourselves up to resolve more discrimination disputes that will be resolved 2% of the time.
So another waste. And, this is just, again, I hate to quote the president the other night, but these people are crazy. I mean, I don't know where they come off thinking that this is a necessity at this point. Number one, redundancy, I agree. But also, 2%, even at that, what's the point of spending millions of dollars?
The point might be to scare people. right? And to settle things that they otherwise wouldn't settle because they don't want to have to be dragged out in litigation, even if they think they're going to win. And honestly, we had this in business too, right? We had to have some small companies that would launch frivolous lawsuits with big companies saying you stole this and you stole that. Completely untrue, completely unfounded. But a lot of companies will just settle to make it go away because it's going to cost them more to litigate and win than to just settle. To me, this is almost the same thing, only in politics and government.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
It's
coercion, in my opinion.
And why would you want to do that?
Right.
We also have, there's a lot to be said about zoning, to change the topic, but I do want to mention zoning. So we have several initiatives in the county that are tied to changing zoning in our communities to increase affordable housing in mixed use areas. So they literally want to change the face of our neighborhoods, particularly in rural areas. They see land and they're drooling over the land and saying, look at how many mixed use buildings we can stuff in there. And it is causing an uproar among citizens who are impacted. So if you think you're not impacted by this and you live in a rural neighborhood where people have maybe an acre for their houses and you have some empty lots or farmland, if it's not changing now, there's a plan to change it. Believe me. They publicly stated that they want to change the face of the rural areas, particularly in areas like where I live, Lower Salford, Indian Valley. There's a lot of open land here still. And the Montco's Homes for All initiative advocates for the policy changes in municipalities and provides incentives and funding to NGOs who will build affordable housing for low-income residents in those areas, whether the current residents want that or not. So their stated objective is to increase housing affordability and equity across the county. And in my view, this is another attempt to redistribute wealth and improve the outcomes of the oppressed classes. And it's another social engineering initiative that's being paid for with your tax dollars. And there are a number of large NGOs who support this initiative, of course, because they're getting incentives and they're getting paid to buy the land if they promise that they will build these high density dwelling units, even in rural areas where the citizens don't want them. The schools can't support them. The firehouses can't support them. The roads can't support them.
The infrastructure isn't built for it.
And it's making a mess. But the voices of these NGOs and the Democrats who are in charge seems to outweigh taxpayer concerns. Well, it's a huge concern.
Again, this is where it starts on a local level. And this is where people need to engage and get involved on a local level. Because many of these things can be combated if you are aware, number one, and number two, if you get involved and go to your supervisors' meetings, go to the planning committees commissioners' meetings, go to your county commissions meetings, and get the word out to others. This podcast needs to be sent to anybody you know in Montgomery County. It should be sent to anybody you know anywhere, because these are all things that can be applied no matter where you live, what county you're in. You need to explore the information, you need to dig, and you need to find out where your tax dollars are going, because it's your money. I've said that a number of times today on this podcast, but it's really important you recognize this isn't just monopoly money. This is coming out of your pocket, and you can't just print more in your basement. So you have to realize what is happening and how it's going to impact your life. If you think that you can sit on the sidelines right now and wait until it's right on your doorstep, it will be too late at that point. It's going to happen. And as Michelle just said, if you don't think these things are coming to your community and your area, you are absolutely wrong. It will be there. It's just a question of when. So Michelle, I want to kind of wrap things up here with a few thoughts. Now, I've talked a little bit about getting involved, getting engaged. What are your thoughts about what can be done about what you've described and how people can engage in this process to move the needle back to where it should be from this extreme that we're heading towards?
Yeah, sure. So what I would like the commissioners to do, which I don't have a lot of confidence that they will do it unless we can get different leadership. We need to do zero-based budgeting. And we used to force our department heads and plant managers and other business leaders to do this as an exercise from time to time, to really have to justify the money that's being spent. Just because we have been spending money in a particular area or in a particular department doesn't mean we should continue to do so. And with government, it seems like once it's in there, you can never take it out. Like everything's
Right.
assumed to be perfect and you can only add, you can never subtract. That's a fallacy. It's totally a fallacy. You can shrink departments, you can shrink headcount, you can move money from one place to another. You can add new departments when you need them. We have to move with the times. But often you have to say, well, what am I willing to give up to be able to get that? I don't see that dialogue happening in any real way. I know that Tom did a great job this year on what could have been a very disastrous budget, but I don't think it goes far enough because I don't think we're challenging where can we reduce spending? What departments can we eliminate? And I know what I would start with. If we care about the taxpayers and we want to be efficient with our tax dollars, I think we can do much better and the quality of services doesn't have to go down. But doing the zero-based budgeting exercise forces people to really think, can we live without this? Or can we live, what are we really doing here? What have we gotten for the money? Let's look at the last 10 years. What have they delivered, right? It challenges the leaders in government to publicly defend the spending levels or make cuts. And that's just being healthy. And the commissioners could be heroes if the three of them, all three, would do this, even if it wasn't public, and said, you know what, we did find some areas where we're not really getting what we thought we were going to get from that, and we're going to divert the funding, or heaven forbid, we're going to target a 0% tax increase over the next 3 years. We're going to find ways to do more with less money. That's what we should be doing.
Absolutely.
I think public project reviews, I've asked for this as well. Don't expect it to happen. I would be delighted if it did. But why are we not having public project reviews for massive capital projects and other areas of major spending? Have a special meeting and allow the public to come and ask questions of the project managers and the contractors about how they're spending money, why there are so many overruns, why are we off schedule. Let the public, what are we afraid of? We're not letting the public help them. I mean, I know that Dave and I would be willing to do these things for free. And I guarantee we would find probably 15% in projects that we could cut immediately with no impact. So I don't know that we're asking the right questions. I really don't, because we don't have access to that. You know,
Right.
We can't participate in that, and it's a shame. I would say provide full transparency regarding the government organization, including roles and responsibilities, job descriptions, salaries, and plans for future expansion with rationale. And by the way, we could also be posting measurable results. So in business, as you know, we have measurable objectives, not fuzzy feel-good objectives, measurable objectives about the impact we're having on our customers, for our customers and our employees. There isn't a dashboard for Montgomery County. So we don't know what the objectives are. We don't know if they're meeting them or not, but we know they're hiring more people and they're expanding as if they're knocking it out of the park. But we just don't know what the rate of return is. So I'd say post a scorecard and let's have measurable results. So, in short, on that piece, I'd say make 0% budget increases an objective. You may not meet it every year. There's nothing wrong with reallocating funds from one department to another. There's nothing wrong with saying we just didn't get what we thought we would out of this, and we're going to cut this department. We're just not doing it enough. And by the way, I do want to mention that I think I did before, we have requested right to know and more FOIA details on individual budgets that are not publicly available. We're starting to get some of that information now, and we will be doing further investigation to also better understand the need for increased debt that is being taken year over year. So we also have debt and we have unallocated funds that are quite hefty, and we want to better understand how were those targets set and what could that funding be used for legitimately. So I want to also say, how can we engage? Offer the county commissioners your assistance. So if if there's a particular topic you're passionate about and you want to be involved, offer your assistance. They may not take it, but also look at the line item budgets for those areas and personally understand the decisions and opportunities to do better. The second one is anyone can file a right to know request for details. So we're doing that for the sake of getting our analysis done. But again, if there's a particular area that you're interested in and the information is not available on the Montgomery County website, file a right to know request. And by law, they have to provide you the information, unless there's anything specific that needs to be redacted. But that's usually not the case for what we're talking about here. And then lastly, speak about what you're learning. So as you learn things, share it with other people, because I know others who are doing this analysis, and unfortunately they're keeping it all to themselves, and it doesn't help us because one person isn't going to move the needle, but a lot of us can. So if you share, if you learn things, demand answers from the commissioners, show up at the meetings and the town halls, ask difficult questions and allow them the opportunity to answer or not. They may not answer, but in your questions, you're educating the public so they understand what's going on too. And I think, overall, I would say that there are many programs and budget items that are providing tremendous value. Like I said, our budget's $633 million. Much of that money is being spent for good initiatives. I question, even for the good initiatives, are we being efficient with how we're spending the money? Because I think we can improve how we're spending money and do more with less for those good initiatives. I think there's tremendous waste. And I also think there's overreach. So the HRC, the DEI initiatives, us getting into land management and incenting NGOs to build multi-dwelling units and go after townships for zoning changes against the will of the taxpayers. I think that's tremendous overreach. And I also think it's disrespectful of the taxpayers to, wave a magic wand and give people massive increases in salaries without at least providing justification and helping us understand that it's really the right thing to do, and being resentful when questions are asked. So I hope that we're going to have some Democrat commissioners in the future, maybe on this podcast, to answer the questions and help us understand. And I would love to hear them promise that they're going to engage taxpayers and that we all want to do better so we can continue providing the great services at a more reasonable spending level, which benefits all of us. It would be great for our county. But we have to, I just think it's becoming adversarial because it's clear that the spending and the decisions that are being made by the Democrat commissioners on the whole are not in line with most taxpayers, regardless of what side of the aisle they're on. They're almost treating this like it's their own piggy bank to do social experiments. That's my opinion. That's what I'm seeing from the data. So that part is my opinion. I've been shocked in digging deeper in the analysis. I hope that people and citizens will become more engaged and start speaking out. And I will also just say, please, 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 if you are not a registered voter, I'm begging you to register to vote and to exercise your right to vote in every single election, not just the presidential election or the governor election, because these decisions that are having impact on our communities are oftentimes made at the local level. Your town supervisors or your mayor or your local commissioners, your representatives, committee members. Those are really important positions to dictating how your community is going to engage on these decisions with the commissioners and those they're paying to execute on their objectives. And if you don't vote, you honestly don't have a right to complain, and bad things can happen. So I'm just asking every person, if you do nothing else, please register and please find a way to vote in every election.
Critical points, and I can't overemphasize my agreement with those comments from Michelle. We have to engage. We have to become part of the process. Michelle has organized individuals. There are others that are working with her on multiple different things. We're going to get together again on the election integrity issue. I'm going to bring you and Dave back again, Michelle, if you're willing, and go into more detail. We could have spent 3 hours today talking about all this. But I think the salient points are these. We need to be aware of what our tax dollars are going for. And most of us aren't. Most of us have no clue until it starts to really affect our pocketbooks and until it affects our lives. That's when we become engaged, unfortunately. In so many ways, we wait until it's on our doorstep and then we complain. And as Michelle said, if you're not part of the process, you are definitely not part of the solution. So you must register to vote, as Michelle said. You must vote in every single election. And I want to comment on something else that Michelle just brought up earlier. Complicating things, complicating departments, complicating anything that's being done on a federal, state, or local level makes it much more difficult. When I was a kid, Election day was election day. School was closed, businesses closed. You went to your local school or voting place and you went in, you voted, and the votes were tabulated at the end of the night. By the next day, in most instances, you know who won the election. This nonsense we have now with multiple ways of voting. I mean, I'm all for absentee ballots. There are reasons for those, and there always have been. However, the way we're voting today, with all these crazy mail-in ballots and all these different ways that we can vote, is insanity. We can simplify the process and create much less confusion, much less animosity amongst the different entities as to how an election's run, what the results are, and questioning the validity of those results. It'd be very simple to modify and improve the way it once was. So, Michelle, amazing information. I truly appreciate you, David, and everyone else who gets involved in our county. And I will ask everyone watching this podcast to send it to others, to get the information out. As Michelle said, this information does no one any good if it's cloistered and held to ourselves. It is only valuable if it's shared with others who will share that information still with others and be able to apply it, use it, and get involved and engage. So I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Michelle for her time and valuable information that she is uncovering and continues to do. And I want to thank you all for being a part of this process. We must move the needle back towards where it should be from the extreme that it is heading to and is already there, honestly, in many ways. So, Michelle, thank you. Keep up the great work. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of what you've done. I appreciate Dave, and we're going to have him back with you. And I appreciate everyone who has watched us and is part of what we're doing with STN. I want you all to put on your calendars on April 18th the event that we are doing with Morning Star Fellowship Church, where we're bringing two pastors in, one from Australia, one from Tennessee. Both were Muslim, both converted, both are pastors, both are there to speak about what's going on in this country relative to the Islamic migration and what the plan is. Be there, be part of who we are, be part of the process, and get engaged. So thank you all. I appreciate you, and I look forward to bringing you more information about what's going on in our community, our county, our state, and our nation. Hey everyone, I just want to take a quick moment to thank you for being part of the Shield of Truth Network community. For those of you who have been with us since we started, you've seen us evolve from our early monthly in-person meetings, where we would gather together as a group, exchange ideas, and bring in speakers to educate on a variety of important topics. As the mission grew, we expanded well beyond the in-person meetings and have now evolved into virtual platforms, allowing STN to reach a much larger audience and connect with people far beyond our local community. If you are encouraged by the work STN is doing and believe in our mission, we invite you to support the Shield of Truth Network. Your support helps us to continue to educate, produce content, and reach more people with information that matters. You can use the link in the description or the QR code here on the screen, or visit Shield of Truth Network to donate. If you're not able to donate at this time, we certainly understand, but you can help in a powerful way. You can share this video with a friend or family member and post it to your social media. Also, if you enjoy our content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new release. All of these actions help us to reach more people, expand our mission, and make a real impact. We are grateful for your support, as this mission would not be possible without you. And we look forward to what God has in store for our future. Thank you for being a part of the Shield of Truth Network's mission, and God bless you all.